Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Yes, it is Football at 4. It's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It dropped this morning at 6 a.m. It's powered by the pros at Philly Sports Trips. If you're a diehard Philly fan who's looking for some great Philly sports road trips, it's time to check out the full trip lineup at phillysportstrips.com. Andrew DiCecco is here. We've got some Eagles to dive into today. Yesterday, they made the signing of James Bradberry. He will join the secondary. It'll be Slay, Maddox, and Bradberry now. So, how will that help John Gannon's scheme? How will that allow him to change the way he calls his defenses? There's only one man who has the answer to those questions, and it's Andrew DiCecco, who joins us right now on Football at 4. Andrew, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Well, it's going good, man. I know Eagles fans are excited. It's like, hey, last year we need Steve Nelson. They got Steve Nelson. Well, then he left, and now they needed to replace him. It seems that they upgraded Steve Nelson with James Bradberry. Is this an upgrade for Philadelphia?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And this further cements what we were talking about over the past couple of weeks, that the roster was far from being a finished product. A lot of times, I mean, you look at what the Eagles did by getting Ronald Darby in August. They got Steve Nelson late in the summer. I believe it was late July. So the roster's constantly changing. LeGarrette Blount was another late signing in May. I believe that was that anniversary recently came up. I think I saw that on social media. So they're constantly going to be churning the roster, getting some veteran adds late in the summer, as the Eagles have a history of doing that. So I never really felt that they were going to go into the season, certainly with Zach McPherson, Mac McCain, Josiah Scott, and those guys, Tay Gowan, vying for that last cornerback spot. I always thought that they had a plan, and they upgraded in a big way by getting James Bradberry.
All right, so how does Bradberry first fit into this defense?
He's a seamless fit, and he really fits in any system. I mean, he is the big-bodied, 6'1", 210-pound perimeter corner that is going to take the bigger possession type of receiver, physical guy that the opposition has, and I imagine that Slay is going to handle the more nuanced route runners, the speedy, quicker guys, and they really have the best of both worlds in both of those corners. And then you have Maddox that is a really terrific in short area quickness and can handle these little shifty slot receivers. So they really do have the cornerback contingent, the top three guys that are well equipped to handle receivers of all shapes and sizes.
Right. So Bradberry has kind of had the label of a zone corner. How is that?
Right.
With, John Gannon, how did he call defenses last year, and now with Bradberry, how can he change that up? Well, you expect, I would imagine he said he chose the Eagles because of the scheme fit for him. I would imagine that means, does that signal to you more zone looks for them?
I would imagine so, but I do think that he offers the flexibility to play man and end zone. He's that good. But I also think that it had to do with scheme, but I also think that when you look at what the roster is sort of transpiring, the roster that's shaking out in Philadelphia, I think that he sees this as an opportunity to win. And playing opposite Darius Slay, there's going to be more opportunities for him to make some plays as well. So I think it's a better overall situation for him. But, yes, I do expect to see some more zone looks with this addition.
Obviously, you've got Slay and Bradberry and Maddox there. Would you say that this Eagles secondary went from being a big question mark to maybe one of the stronger secondaries in the conference?
If everybody plays to standard, yes. On paper, absolutely. But right now, I mean, you just added a 28-year-old Bradberry who's coming off, a little bit of a lackluster season, but he's played at a high level just 2 seasons ago, and he's, like I said, he's 28 years old, and I think that he's going to be in a favorable scheme and playing opposite a caliber of talent such as Darius Slay. I think you're going to see a vastly improved James Bradberry this season in Philadelphia, and I'm really interested to see how Jonathan Gannon really allocates him and chooses to deploy him, because now he has so much optionality.
Yeah. Now, I'd like you to get into that a little bit, because this is a Pro Bowl guy, and there was James Bradberry 2 years ago. If you were playing the Giants, hey, they got this shutdown guy. Bradberry's having a great year. Now, numerically, he was very similar. He had actually more interceptions and about the same pass defenses in 2021 that he did the year before. And many people thought he had a down year last year. What do you attribute the really good year in 2020 versus what happened in 2021?
The surrounding play in the secondary, I think that had a lot to do with it. Just the constant shuffling around, and just there wasn't a whole lot of stability there on that back end, and also the front, the defensive line, they weren't getting home. Put a lot more pressure on what he was able to do. I just think that as a whole, that whole Giants defense really regressed compared to the season before that with Patrick Graham, where he was really looked at as a shining star. I think that it was just a culmination of things, but I think he's in a better situation now. I think you're going to see the Eagles take advantage of his intangibles and what he really brings to the table from a skill set standpoint.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people waiting for that safety. If they went with this team with Marcus Epps and Anthony Harris, is that, in your mind, acceptable?
Yeah, I think it is. And the thing to keep in mind is obviously you're not going to be strong in every area. I think right now, but even before this signing, cornerback 2 was the most glaring deficiency on the roster, I would say. You simply could not go into the season. They couldn't line up, to be honest. They couldn't line up with what they currently had there. So I think you take that safety tandem of Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps, given what you have, given the surrounding talent, and I think you're going to be able to get by with those two players. And I really do think that Marcus Epps is going to be a player that takes a step forward this year. He's really been a player that has really improved each season, and I think you saw what he was with more playing time with what you saw last year. He really seemed to really integrate himself well with what Jonathan Gannon was asking of him.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because you look at this secondary now, and then, John Gannon's going to be able to call defenses differently, not only because of secondary, but it's now all-encompassing because of what they have already added with Reddick, getting Jordan Davis, the addition of Kobe Dean and Kaiser White. I would imagine you are going to see a lot different looks now in general from this Philadelphia Eagles defense with John Gannon. And I guess you would say John Gannon has no excuses now.
Absolutely. Now he has the players in place, and he had his say in some of the players and the build and the frame that certain players that he's looking for. So now you have to put them all in position to be successful, and can concoct something that's going to be some semblance of a stingy defense. There's no excuses now. You have your guys. Your hands aren't tied any longer, so you have to make some plays now. And be a little bit more aggressive and just be more consistent on the defensive side of the ball, because now you have the playmakers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it'll be interesting. Like, I don't know, so for the people out there, this, Andrew, the Eagle fan, they don't blitz enough. They don't blitz. They don't send enough guys. Do you expect this to be an aggressive blitzing defense? What should Eagle fans now expect with the personnel that they have?
I think you're going to see a lot more variety, right? I think you're going to see some more blitzing because you're able to take those chances when you're a little bit, more solidified on that back end. Now, even more so with Bradberry. And you have the linebackers, and Kaiser White, I think, is really going to be an X factor here on defense. And and Kobe Dean is a fantastic blitzer, so you're going to see some of that. But also, I think that they're able to get home, I think, with the front four they currently have. And I think the X factor there is Jordan Davis. He's someone that's going to occupy double teams and open things up for everyone else. I think Josh Sweat's going to have a big year given the pieces that have been added around him. So I think it's really going to be a lot of you're going to see a lot of variety here and a lot more flexibility in what he's able to do. If he's not able to live up to his standing as this young defensive coordinator that has head coaching upside, there's going to be a big problem because there's no excuses any longer.
Yeah, and I guess one of the interesting things in this, I feel anyway, will be that linebacker room and how they end up using these guys, because it seems like they can change their fronts, they can change their linebacker looks, they have a lot of versatility in the not only the play calling, but the players they can put in those positions. I mean, they can throw a lot of different looks at you, where in the past, you weren't getting the same amount of depth and talent to be able to do multiple things with.
100% agree. Now you have linebackers with such a diversified skill set. Like you said, you have your run game, your run defending linebacker in T.J. Edwards. You have a number of athletic guys in Davion Taylor if he's able to stay healthy, and you have Kobe Dean, who I think Kobe Dean's going to be a day one starter. So they can give you so many different looks now. Now it's all about how quickly can these players that are coming in from the outside, how quickly can they integrate and pick up the system, and can they stay healthy and carry it through training camp?
Football 4, Andrew DiCecco's here now. Can training camp get here soon enough? I mean, I feel like now people have jumped from, hey, this Eagles team could be pretty good, to almost now putting them into another category, Andrew. So is it fair to say the expectations have changed, not just because of James Bradberry, but has that kind of put the cherry on top of where your expectations move from maybe a wild card team to overtaking Dallas? Is that fair, or do you need to see more?
No, I think when you look at all the moves the Eagles have made, the Eagles essentially made it clear with their moves that they want to be the class of the NFC East, that they have greater aspirations than how last season ended. And I mean, you look at what they have now. They're not leaving anything to chance. They want their defensive coordinator to have the players in place to be successful. They want their quarterback to be successful in Jalen Hurts and giving him another weapon in A.J. Brown. You go down the list, and they've really checked off most of the boxes that were glaring, deficiencies on the roster going into the offseason. So the Eagles have really essentially pushed their chips in to the middle of the table, and they said, you know what, let's go, let's do this, man. We want to be in this just as much as anybody else does.
I'm glad you brought that up, because yesterday that's kind of how I opened the show, Andrew, and it sounds like you agree to some extent. Is the Bradberry move is a move that says, let's go for this. Let's try to win the division. Let's, hey, are we going to win the Super Bowl? You never know, but that's at least try to get that home field playoff game. Let's go for this.
I think the Eagles saw this as they saw the division as an opportunity, that they thought that we're maybe a player or two away. So why not sign a 28-year-old corner who still has a lot of great football left in him? And I think that they saw themselves as very close to be, right up there with Dallas. And now this puts them, at least on paper, ahead of them in this. And I really do feel that the Eagles are confident with what they've done in the offseason to put them in one of the top teams in the NFL this season, and really make a run at this thing. And now it all depends on how quickly how can Jalen Hurts take that next step, and how can Nick Sirianni take that next step now? Because I think defensively, Mike, they've really solidified that, and I think that shouldn't be an issue this year. Now, offensively, are they able to take that next step? Can they become that prolific aerial attack that that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman really envisioned that and really would like for that offense to be?
Yeah, I agree, because the offense, they added A.J. Brown, and that's huge, but you're essentially bringing back most of the same personnel, if not all the same personnel, except for Brown, and that really adds that. But this defense has a completely different look, and I think that is a great sign that they, so many times, Andrew, fans get concerned of, I don't even want to make the playoffs, because that will give the front office a false sense that they're better than they really are. This is a clear example of the Eagles making the playoffs and them not saying, oh, we're pretty good. Like, no, they went and said, we were good, but let's get to that next level.
Right.
And they did it on the defensive. They did it on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. They're not resting on their laurels. They really wanted to really take that next step. Let's add the pieces here. They obviously knew that corner has been a perpetual problem, and linebackers and getting home with regularity on the defensive line. And you look at it, they've added players, key players, on all three levels of the defense. So they're ready to make a run at this thing. And I think Eagles fans should be really excited with what they've done this offseason. Now it's, like I said, getting everybody up to speed in training camp, because when you're getting all these different parts and all these different ingredients, I would say, in the stew, they all need to be able to come together and pretty much gel in order for this to be a cohesive unit.
All right, so James Bradberry's in. You got Slay, Maddox. You've got Brandon Graham coming back. Keep that in mind as well. Derek Barnett will probably get a lesser role. We'll see with Jordan Davis. You got Fletcher Cox, Hargrave, Josh Sweat. The linebackers with Kazir White, Nakobe Dean, T.J. Edwards. Don't forget Davion Taylor. He was playing well. I guess, what is the – I don't want to say, is there a weakness? Obviously there's a weakness, but what is the one area still that's a question mark for you after this offseason of where they are now?
I would still say – well, I would say depth at tight end. Dallas Goddard's been someone that's the way that the nature in which he plays the game, it lends itself to not necessarily being available for an entire season, and that's the guy who is a very key element to what the Eagles want to do on offense and a security blanket for Jalen Hurts. So, moving J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to tight end, I don't know that moves the needle very much. It gives them much of a insurance behind Goddard, but that's an area that I would look at. They're really strong on the offensive line. Adding A.J. Brown obviously solidifies and strengthens that receiving unit, and I think moving Quez Watkins to a third receiver role, it's going to open so many more things up for him, and you're really going to see him take flight this year. And, when you look at defensively, there's still question marks at linebacker. You need to see the pieces are there, and you've added different names, but until they really produce on the field, there's always going to be question marks there. I think you can get by with what you have at safety only because they've added so many other parts around it and improved and bolstered the pass rush and added another strong cornerback complement to Darius Slay.
All right, football at 4. We'll have mini camps, OTAs, training camp. Andrew and I will go through our annual look at the division starting soon as we get closer to the camps opening up and all the things in the NFC. By the way, I saw this stat today. The playoff wins since 2000. The Eagles' 14 playoff wins is the most in the division by far. The next closest is the Giants with 10. Dallas has 3. And since the year 2000, the Commanders have 1 playoff win. So keep that in mind as we enter 2022. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from InsideTheBirds.com. Thanks, bud.
My pleasure. Take care.
Always fun to catch up with Andrew, and we will start our division breakdowns here shortly as we get into the summer. Andrew and I will go through all the different divisions and get his thoughts on each team inside divisions in the NFL, and that will take us right into the start of the season. And, of course, you can hear Eagles football right here on 97.3 ESPN.